resources, and we don't really tap into them. And I'm hoping that part of what happens here is we get a push to reinvigorate, reevaluate that which is available to us in our communities. And that's one of the things that's really important to me. Lastly, I think we need to be fiscally responsible in doing it. I mean, since I've gone on the board, the budget went down the first year and then has been steadily rising, but I don't think it's exceeded what it was the first year I was here 6 years ago. But I think we need to be mindful of administrative growth. One of the things that's disappointed me in the Valley Unified situation is that we've managed to multiply our administrative ranks considerably. And I think addressing that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having administration, we need them. But I think we need to really take a hard look on where our money's going. I'd rather spend more on teachers and on our students. So that's it. Thank you.
You're right on 5 minutes, sir.
It's almost like I do this for a living, Danny.
Yeah, almost. Dave, basically, why are you running and what do you hope to do?
Well, I guess I'd say that I don't think there's anything that's more important for the future of Fort Kent than the quality of its schools. And so whether or not we have good schools and how we're managing all of that is really critical to our future. Obviously, it's critical to the future of the kids, but it also has a county-wide significance.
There's no sound.
I just spotted I unmuted. Before I recoup your speech, Toby.
Thanks.
Sure. You gotta practice that.
So is there sound or isn't there?
There's sound now.
Okay. Was there sound earlier?
There was no sound when I was talking.
Toward the end of it, there was sound from Toby, but just
That's probably the message I was trying to get there.
Ah, okay.
But that's okay. We'll let's keep going on here, and you can restate what they did not hear.
I've had a dry spell in terms of civic engagement over the past 15 years. My professional obligations prohibited me from being involved in civic things in Fort Kent, but historically I have been very involved. So now that I'm retired, I'm available to do it, and I'm anxious to do it if I can be elected. What really draws me into it is concern about the tone of our discussion. Everybody has noticed that, and it's not just the school board, but in other civic affairs, the tone, frankly, has gotten pretty ugly sometimes. And I don't think that needs to be that way. I think it follows a national trend and a statewide trend, but it doesn't have to be that way here. We're a strong community, I think a close community, and it is possible here, traditionally, for people of good faith to disagree and still be friends. Danny and I were talking just before I got on camera about 42 or 43 years that we've worked in civic matters. And I've disagreed with Danny very, very seriously many, many times, but I still call him a friend. So it's possible to have a community and have discussions and have strong disagreements and still be civil with each other. And I think it's critical for us. So I would like to work with others on the board to create that kind of atmosphere, which means that we're not necessarily going to have consensus. I don't think it'll be possible to get everybody singing the same tune. But I think it would be possible to get people talking with each other, having an honest disagreement, working through the process, accepting the results of a democratic process, and moving on to the next issue. And so that's probably my primary motivation for running for the school board, is to try to work with others to establish that type of relationship, that kind of atmosphere.
Thank you, Dave. I forgot to mention a while ago that all 4 candidates were invited. Franklin McKenzie and Tanya Boursin stated to me over the phone that they wish we'd have consulted them as to which night would be best for them. My answer to that was there are 2 major factors. Trying to get it, or 3 actually, trying to get it in time to be broadcast live and taped on Channel 4. The availability of the conference room at the town office here. And someone to do as Channel 4 volunteer, Don Raymond and Chaz Pelletier, doing tonight. Without them, we would have no tapes. And we did make a mistake. We forgot to turn the volume on, but it's corrected now. But both Franklin and Tanya indicated to me that they had prior commitments. So, I mean, there's not much I can do there. Thank you. I've got a question that was given to me, and it's pertains to, I'll read the way it was written, or the way it's written here. People often mistake that what they read on social media for news oftentimes is information shared on these social media sites that is not true. What would you say to voters about something false that you may have been, that they may have said that you said on social media? I guess this is probably for Toby, since my understanding is Dave does not have a Facebook account, or is not on social media, or hasn't been.
Yeah.
So whichever one of you two would like to.
Well, he's coming from a place where if they said something untrue about him on social media, you could have got him arrested. Yeah, it's hard because you don't want to give it credence, by acknowledging it. And it's one of those things that, if you don't want to if you don't want to get covered in mud, you don't wrestle pigs. And you can't go out there and fight everybody who's saying awful things about you. And every time, I was just commenting that I'm proudly the recipient of the hatred on two secret Facebook pages, one for Valley Unified and one for the anti-masking. And people send me the screen caps of the awful things that are said, often completely untrue. You can't let it worry you. People are going to say things that are untrue. And the thing is, the fervor with which they say things that are untrue, I think really undermines the believability of it, right? The louder you scream and the more people that are screaming things, the less believable it becomes. Because if we believe everything that was said, I'm secretly controlling Dave here. I'm controlling Sarah Ashley. I'm controlling Keith Johnbro. I'm so powerful, it's unbelievable. That's not true. I'm just a board member. I don't have any supernatural powers to control people's minds, but that's what's being alleged, that I'm some puppet master. I'm just a board member. And just because somebody doesn't agree with something you said doesn't mean that they're being controlled by somebody else. And this online stuff is bullying, plain and simple, which is something I wanted to bring up in my first thing. We need to do more on the school level and on the community level to deal with this type of bullying. It's unacceptable behavior. The stuff that people will say to you on Facebook, they would never say to you face to face. And that's that should be the test, right? That's what I tell my kids. Anything you're going to write to somebody, it should be something that you're willing to look at them in the eye and say yourself. If it's something you're only brave enough to say behind your computer, you probably shouldn't say it.
Okay.
I'd just add to that, Danny. We have to learn rules of engagement. If somebody advances a proposition, we ought to do such a thing, and the response is, well, you're a jerk, or your mother, schoolyard, stuff from when I was a kid, your mother wears army boots. Probably not a good example, because a lot of mothers do wear army boots, and we're proud of them, but that's just an indication of how times have changed. I use it as an example. When you attack the person rather than the argument, the issue, it's not useful, but it can be very effective as a tool for argumentation, but it's not fair, really, and it doesn't advance the discussion. Or when you characterize the way somebody else makes a presentation in a way that makes it seem ridiculous and then burn it down. Well, that's not really helpful either. So there's some basic rules about having a discussion and how you can keep things in bounds that we can practice, we can implement, I think. And part of that involves not tolerating discussion outside of those bounds. I say not tolerating doesn't mean cut people off. It simply help people understand, no, that's just not helpful. What's your point? Get to your point, make your point, we'll help you make your point if you need to. Very important to let people be heard, but also very important to not let them spew hatred. And so we have work to do in that regard.
Okay, we're gonna get to another line of question here. What do you think, either one of you that wants to jump in first here? How can MSED 27 better support the member communities and vice versa? By that, I guess I mean is, how can they work better with Frenchville, Senegat, and Madawaska, and yet benefit all of us, not just one school district more than the other?
You're asking two different things, Danny. Our member communities are Wallagrass, St.
No,
Francis, St. John.
Yes, but I'm talking as a board member of SAD 27.
Yeah,
And part of this tri-community or tri-school system that they've been trying to formulate for years.
yeah.
How can you work together there?
I think we are working together. I mean, we share so much right now. I would argue almost too much. I think we, in a rush to consolidate, maybe lost our way a little bit. And I feel like the other communities, I mean, when we have our Valley Unified meetings, I mean, you can watch them. I mean, Madawaska is raising questions about what Valley Unified means to them and whether or not this is worth it. What parts do we want to keep? What parts do we want to get rid of? I think it's important to constantly be asking what each of our communities need. And I don't care if it's SAD 27 communities, SAD 33 or Madawaska. I mean, we constantly need to be reevaluating what we need. And I feel like we are doing that currently. I mean, we're currently meeting and discussing what the future of Valley Unified is, what that looks like, what we want to keep and what we want to get rid of. But our needs aren't always the same. And I think that's part of the risk of lumping too much together, is sometimes our needs and our resources are different than, let's say, Frenchville's needs and resources or Madawaska's needs and resources. I think just constant communication and allowing the boards to drive. I think the individual boards really need to be looking at this seriously and constantly asking themselves what's working and what isn't. And I think the most important part is for each of the member units to have autonomy to leave the arrangement if they want. And that's one of the problems we have right now is under Valley Unified, we're all bound to this 30-year contract and we can't get out. But the other members have indicated that they think that's excessive. So we're right now in the middle of talks at shortening that to anywhere from 1 to 3 years, where we have the option to leave Valley Unified if we wish, or the option to stay, share some resources, not share any. But even before Valley Unified, we shared resources. We had agreements between the 3 districts, sometimes just 2. We shared 1 teacher with Frenchville, we didn't share them with Madawaska. As our population continues to go down, the need to share is going to become increased. But I'd like to see us be wise about it and waste as little time on school buses as possible.
I don't have any expertise in the matter. I haven't been on the school board, and I haven't really engaged on the issue, frankly. So I've got a lot to learn if I should be elected.
Okay, with that said, Dave, what do you believe that your primary role as a school board member is?
Primary role?
Yeah.
To make sure that we're running effective schools, and that really boils down to that we're delivering a good quality education to the children in the school district. I mean, that's pretty basic. Nothing more important than that.
Okay.
Which, by the way, you can lose sight of that. You can, for instance, you can get excited about building a new building and lose sight of the fact that really the fundamental job is to make sure these kids have a good, solid education and that they have the tools they need to be successful adults. So you can get distracted about masks. You can get distracted about so many different things. So it's worthwhile to remind ourselves, really, how are we doing in the basic job of making sure that the kids are getting what they need?
Okay, to follow up on that question, get what you need or what the students need. The Tech Center in Frenchville offers some very good programs for students, including modern heavy equipment and forestry simulators. Do you feel that SAD 27 should continue being part of this tech center in Frenchville?
Right. Well, I can't comment on the particular simulators and machines or things of that nature. I'm not familiar with them. I think tech has traditionally been a way for educators to reach students who don't have a burning interest in school. And so you put them into an atmosphere where they can use their hands, where they can be taught from a different perspective, not necessarily sitting in a seat of a classroom, but actually going out and doing things. I think that's great. And I even advocate for all of the students to be introduced to part of that, as part of what it takes to be well educated or begin to have a full development of who you are and what your chances might be in later in life. So yeah, if your question is, do I support tech education? The answer is yes. You know, in colleges, we're finding that the technical schools are stepping into the role that colleges used to serve, in that they're providing to students a lot of the basic stuff that they absolutely need to have, that somehow they weren't getting in college anymore. And it's not that complicated. You're talking about through grades 12, right? So you're talking basic reading, writing, and arithmetic. And then hopefully a good grounding in sports or things that involve moving around, coordination and so forth. And ideally, a really good introduction to things like music and art. And whatever special interests the students may have, you know, you want to do those things. And tech education, I think, offers a great opportunity to do that.
Would you like to comment on that, Toby?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I grew up at a time when, I'm going to date myself, I was around when the tech center opened. My time in high school was staggered by the tech center opening. So I took architectural drawing with Pat Vizin in high school, and I learned how to draft a house. And to this day, I can still sit there with a square, and I mean, now they're doing it by CAD, so it's not the same, but I can still sit there with a square and draw something. And it might not be perfect, but it's something. And I was a college-bound student. And my biggest issue with tech is that we've created a parallel track for our students, and we're taking them out of mainstream education. And I think it's good for students who are planning on going to college to learn a trade. And I think it's good for students who want to learn a trade to write a poem. We should be more well-rounded. If all you teach somebody how to do is dig a hole, that's all they'll learn how to do. And then what do they do when they graduate, if there's no one who wants them to dig a hole? I mean, I find that we are limiting our students by focusing too narrowly on particular trades instead of having them come out being well-rounded, well-grounded individuals. Our town's not going to save itself. I mean, our dwindling population, our diminished tax base, it's not going to fix itself. We need to create the next generation of problem solvers, and it's not by just giving them, we're going to teach you how to run a processor. Fine, learn how to run a processor, but you need to learn how to read well. You need to be able to write in a way that other people can understand you and that's compelling. You need to be able to speak in a way that when you talk to your neighbors and your friends, they understand what your concerns are. And I feel like we're failing because we've been so focused on preparing people, and this is statewide, this isn't SAD 27, the state went on this cruise probably about 20 years ago to make everybody ready for the workforce. In the process, we've lost everything that it takes to make people whole citizens. And that's what I think we should be producing is whole citizens ready to go, who can do anything.
Yeah, and I'd echo that too. I don't think the purpose of school is to prepare people for work. It's part of it, but it's to prepare them to be happy and successful in life. And that involves a lot more than, you know, pulling levers and running a simulator, for instance, obviously. But if you put them in a simulator and you show them what it's like, and in the process, they learn to read the manual. And in the process, they develop eye-hand coordination. In the process, they learn a little bit about the industry, and they have to do some mathematics, perhaps, to you know, figure out how you pay, how you make a living doing stuff like that, well then, you've kind of come in the back door and taught them the sorts of things that you want to teach. It's just a different teaching style. But the goal shouldn't be, we're going to teach you to run a processor. The goal should be, we're going to give you the skills you need to succeed. And if you do it by demonstrations on a processor, great.
What are your thoughts about, okay, I've already asked that one here, Valley Unified. Toby, you hit on it, shared services and resources. What do you think should be the short-term and the long-term goals of our district? Either one of you.
I think the biggest concern that we ought to have, in my opinion, is the underperforming results we're getting from testing. And I'm not slavish about testing. And I think there's a lot more to an education than what a standardized test will reveal. Get that out there. But, on the other hand, if you look at our scores, we're underperforming in Fort Kent by national standards and by state standards. That's not okay. And it affects us in a whole variety of ways. First and foremost, we're not delivering for the kids the things that we set out to deliver. That's a basic failure. I'm not saying we're failing, but we have a lot of work to do. But for the community, too, it has lots of effects. For instance, I was looking at a house on Zillow last night, and I noticed at the bottom of Zillow, they have a ranking of your educational system in your community. And so I kind of took a peek at what do they say about our schools. And they have a ranking for the elementary school and middle school and the high school. The reason they do that is because people who might be moving to your town are very interested in the quality of your schools. Now, what does Zillow know about the quality of our schools? They're certainly not experts. But the opinion they express on that internet site has a big effect on what people are thinking about. Is Fort Kent a good place to raise my children? The scores there were not really happy scores, you know. So I think that ought to be primary focus. How we doing, you know?
Short term, we need to go back to having meetings where we actually get something done. I'm so happy that CDC has changed the guidelines. We're not going to be debating masking anymore, so we can actually talk about education. Okay, that's huge. Our policies need to be retweaked. Our strategic plan makes reference to a school that's not going to be built in Frenchville. I mean, our strategic plan doesn't make any sense. I feel like and I think another thing, most importantly, we need to go back and recommit to, in the short term, to the fact that public school is worth it, our community deserves it, our children deserve it, and we owe a duty to them to cooperate even when we disagree. And that whatever the board says is what goes. If a majority says something, that's what goes. No more infighting. We need to be able to move forward and work productively through negotiations, through horse trading, whatever it takes. That's how business gets done. That's the short term. Long term, we need to be thinking about where we are in 50 years, not in 5 years. Long term is not 5 years. Long term is 50 years. Do we want a community here in 50 years? I do. I love this place. I could have stayed in Portland, I came back. I grew up the river. And I came back here, is this where I want to be? We need to be thinking about what we can do to seed the soil so there are people here in 50 years. And it's by embracing what's good here, reinforcing to our children that this is a worthwhile place to be. So growing up, I was told if I didn't study hard, I'd be stuck here. That's what was told to me by teachers. Like, this is the worst place in the world. I love this place. I think I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. We need to start reaching out to our children and really making them understand that this is a place that's special and it's worth it. And we need to internalize that as well, because I feel like on some level, many of the people in the community don't think that this place is worth it. I think we need to double down on looking at our resources, looking at our community, and recognizing how absolutely wonderful it is. But then looking at what it needs a bunch of people who can go out there and work and engage and do all these things. And it needs people who are flexible and who are looking to solve problems and looking to help their neighbors. It's not, we don't need so many electricians or so many, we can do that, but that's a losing battle, because once you get all your electricians and you got a bunch of people trained to be electricians who can't do, there's no work for. We need flexible people to come out and look at the world around them and be honest about what's expected of them.
When you said, if you're not educated, you say the teachers told you if you're not educated, you're gonna be stuck here.
Yeah.
So basically, they're trying to educate you to leave.
To leave.
Is
Yeah.
that a good thing?
It was a horrible thing.
Okay. The other point I wanna make out, you said upriver. Usually when somebody says upriver to me, it's Allagash. So actually, you're from St. Francis, so it's not quite upriver.
I'd
But
like
anyway,
the
that was
record
just
to reflect the river's there. St. Francis is that way.
No, it's still up from here.
Yeah, I guess it's like anybody who's not from here is from away, I guess.
That's right. This is a loaded question here for Dave. Somebody wanted to know, as a parent with no school-age children,
Mhm.
what makes you think you can be effective for SAD 27?
Yeah. I've heard that asked before. I gotta say, I don't understand that. I mean, it's got kind of a what's in it for you quality, right? If you haven't got any kids in the system, you don't really have an interest in it. I don't think that question would have been asked 20 years ago. In my work, if you have a real direct emotional interest in something, you've got to get off the case, because you're not a good objective decider. I'm not suggesting people with parents can't be on the school board. Obviously not. But my point is, you don't need to have kids to care a lot about education for the children in this district. Why does a volunteer join the fire department? What's in it for them? Is it because they have a house on fire? No. They do it for a sense of community service. Why do you serve on the planning board? Is it because, and have served on the planning board for what, 42, 43 years? Longer than that. Some crazy amount of time, anyway. It's not because you have a direct interest in those things. It's because you want to serve your community. I don't think that's a strange thing at all. I think it's part of what built Fort Kent, what made Fort Kent special. I know my grandfather and my father, when they were in town, were always thinking about the future. They were always making a plan for the betterment of the children and the grandchildren. And they would say this, they were quite explicit about it. You know, we got to be thinking about our grandchildren here. In recent years, a lot of folks are thinking, man, if I can only make it to retirement and move to Florida, you know, they don't have a lot of confidence in this community. Bangor Daily ran a series a couple of years ago, I think, about the decline of rural Maine. And it was really an excellent, very well-written series. But the conclusion was, listen, this is all going down the tubes, and these folks are just going to have to get used to it. I don't think that conclusion could have been more wrong. This town is just hopping with potential, hopping with opportunities for growth, and we're just now seeing it turn the corner. So people are beginning to take an interest in Fort Kent for some of the same reasons they were leaving 20 years ago, you know, and saying, yeah, this is a pretty special place. We do have a special place here, but we won't if we don't believe it and don't build on it. So it's a community effort, and I want to be part of that.
He told me to change the question a little bit. Do you feel, since you have children in school, that you're the one of the few that should be a school board member?
No.
And
No.
why not?
Well, for the same reason that when you talk to somebody and you don't have any kids, they say, I don't want to pay, I don't think I should have to pay taxes on the school. I mean, that's a completely unrealistic approach. I mean, I've heard that from people in the community. Well, I'm retired. I don't think I should have to pay for the school. My kids have gone through. I mean, there's no there's nothing left there for the community. I mean, this is a public good. We all benefit from it, okay? There's nothing worse than having a community made up entirely of people who are ill-educated, okay? We need people who can function, who can dream, who can do things, okay? But if we short our school, then we're killing our future. We're salting the fields. And I think that's the thing we need to remember is every time we say, oh, that's not worth it for me, what's in it for me? There's not a single less Fort Kent mentality than what's in it for me. I grew up this is an area where if you are a rugged individual, come see me on a February night, we'll walk you in a field and see how rugged you are. Okay, we survive here because we have community. My grandfather, I had a friend who was outdoor camping, and I remember joking with him. My grandfather knew I was sleeping outside. He'd wonder why he worked all those years to put a house up. I mean, there's a reason we have a community. We have a community center. We have all these things because we get a reminder every year that nobody survives alone, that we're a community. Just look outside, nobody survives in this. So we're fortunate to have our winter as a reminder, and I think we should celebrate it as such, that we need our community. And that's why I don't care if you have a kid or you don't have a kid in school. Your goal should always be, how can I make my community better? How can I strengthen my relationship with my neighbors? How can we make things better? And otherwise, I don't know why you'd go do anything.
Okay, I think to try to stay on schedule, even though we did start late and we did not have volume for a while, or sound. How about 5 minutes each, summation as to why either one of you is better than the other two, or whatever. I mean, there's only 2 seats that are open, and there's really 4 that are running. 2 incumbents running for their seats again, and 2 new people. Since we started with Toby first, I think we'll start with Dave.
Well, I don't know my opponents, so I obviously can't comment on them, except that I think it's a good thing that we have 4 candidates rather than 2. I can recall it wasn't very long ago when you had to draft people to serve on the school board. So that's a welcome development in a way. I don't have anything more to say than that.
I guess what I would say is I have experience on the school board, and I think that speaks for something. And I think you can see, I think pretty much every meeting I've been on in the past 4 years, if you go to WFK TV, I would say I'm pretty clear about what my objectives are, and I'm pretty clear that they align with what I'm saying tonight. I'm going to consistently try to do what I've always tried to do, which is try to get things better, try to make things better. I'm not gonna make them perfect, I can't, but I'm gonna try to make them better. I'm not gonna badmouth the other folks who aren't here. I don't think it makes anybody look better to say bad things about other people. I wish they had been here, because I would have been curious to see what they had to say. I'm genuinely interested. I think it would have been a more lively debate, more interesting dynamic, but they're not here. First time I ran, Danny, I think I ran against you all those years ago.
Yeah, and I lost to you.
Yeah, you did. And I remember you came to see me after, and we shook hands. And we've gotten along, I think, pretty well the entire time. And I think what I'd like to say is, more than anything else, I'd like to go back to a time when that's normal. When it's not shouting and yelling and threatening and lawyers. I mean, I'm a lawyer, I get you. But, I mean, it's awful. I don't want that. I want to be able to have an honest discussion, an honest debate, an honest vote, and then shake hands and then talk to you about the weather in my driveway. I like that. And I wonder if we're ever going to be able to go back to that, because it's just gotten so ugly.
Well, you made reference to defeating me, which that was okay. I served twice on the school board. First time for 10 years, and I was off a couple years, and then I went back on for 9 years.
Yeah.
So, as the saying goes, and both of you are in law, I served my time.
And I didn't bring it up to take a dig,
No,
Danny. I
but
just, it's nice to
My
have
point
you.
I was gonna get at is that people that know me realize that we're gonna have a run-in sooner or later. Right, Jake?
Amen, brother.
Right, Carol? And it's just like a balloon, poof, it's over with. I don't hold grudges, but don't slap my face twice.
Mhm.
Okay, with that said, I'd like to thank Toby Jondro, Dave Susi, and Franklin McKenzie and Tanya Wazin from Fort Kent, who are running for the school board. Those two were not able to be here because of conflict of scheduling. And Shannon Lugden, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right,
You are.
from Wallagrass, who the reason, as I mentioned earlier, was not here or was not invited is because she is running unopposed in a district that has very few Fort Kent voters. So once again, I'd like to thank you, and this will conclude the session for school board candidates. We'll have probably a 10-minute closed mic session. And when we come back, we will hopefully
Good at that.
turn it on.
You already
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome to Candidates Night for Town Council in Fort Kent, Maine. That's 2020, the year. Okay, you guys did not sit the way I was hoping, but anyway, my name is Danny Nicholas. We have 5 members of the community who are running for Town Council, which has 2 seats up for election. To my far left is Jake Robichaux, who's running to retain his seat. To his right is Carol Theriault, who's also running to retain his seat. To his left is Richard Douglas, and I've got to say this, Richard. He is a gentleman that lives on the Caribou Road with the blue shutters across from the old drive-in, if you people remember where the old drive-in was. Then we have Andrew Burden. And then the last but not least is Brandon Dayton. Welcome, gentlemen. And when I said gentlemen, I almost hesitated and I thought, geez, there's no women here. So I guess we're going to leave it at that. What I'd like to do is give each one of you, and I'm going to start with the alphabetically, last name, Andrew Burden. You've got, I'm going to try to go, if I can set my time here. To 3 minutes, since we're 5, and I'd like to get done in an hour. 3 minutes to introduce yourself and give the audience the reason you feel you're the best candidate for one of the 2 seats.
All right.
Andrew?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dan. A lot of folks know me because I've been a reporter in the St. John Valley on and off for about 20 years. I've been a businessman in the St. John Valley, started the Fiddlehead Focus. And across that time, I have sat in the audience of countless town council meetings and countless school board meetings and civic affairs that go on with these things. And because of the position that I would hold in the community, I would never be able to express my opinion. I would never be able to engage much in the debate that might occur around the important issues that we always face. Well, about 3 years ago, I left the journalism business, and I have found that fascination with public service is still with me. And I think that this gives me an opportunity to experience this from the other side of the table, from this side of the table. Now, the reason that I think that I'm qualified for this is because I have experience as an entrepreneur. I have experience as a businessman. I have an experience in public service. I come from a military family. I'm an Eagle Scout. I have an interest in this community and a love for this community. I moved here a little over 20 years ago and have never felt any inclination to leave. This is an amazing place. And we have challenges and opportunities that are coming up. And I think that if we are well informed and that we keep the people that we serve well informed, and we are able to discern good information from bad information, and we have respect for the people around us, that as we go towards the future, we can lift everyone up and we can re-engage with a renewed sense of community, a renewed sense of civil discourse. Because I think that we've seen a change over the past couple of years that has been, it's been disheartening. And I'd like to have that move more towards an engaged, graceful harmony that I've seen so often in this community. and I'd like to be a part of that.
Thank you. Our next one is Brandon. Same question, if you remember the question.
Could you repeat it?
What makes you think that you'd be the best person, or one of the two of the better people to serve as a member of
That's a little bit easier.
the town council?
All right, well, thank you. So my name is Brandon. I'm a newcomer in town, been here going on 3 years. Originally moved up here because I got a job at the college. Kind of lived all over the place before coming up here, big cities, small towns. Really come to like this, I almost said city, like the town. You know, where I lived before in a small town called Edinburgh, Indiana, same population as Fort Kent, but we didn't have nearly quite as much as you guys did. You got a movie theater, you can go skiing here, you've got a really cool bilingual community that doesn't really exist in most places in the world. You've got a university right in town, so you've got a lot going on. I guess the reason I'm running for town council is because, you know, we hear a lot about how we need to expand the tax base and we need to invite people and we need more people here. Well, that means you need people from the outside to come in. And for people from the outside to come in and want to be part of your community, things need to be transparent for them. Things need to be accommodating for them so that they know what's going on in town, so that they can be active members of the community. So that's why I'm running.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I lost my clock. Okay, the next one is Richard Douglas.
Rick, please.
How
The
do
only
you
person
get-
that calls me Richard is my mom when
How
she
do
was
you
mad
get-
at
How
me.
do you get Ray out of Richard?
Was that Rick?
Oh, Rick,
Rick.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Rick.
Well, like Andrew, I was a journalist for the better part of 35 years. I worked in television news all over the United States. And I covered my share of city council meetings and school board meetings. And I was always sitting there thinking, you know, is this really the kind of thing that some of these people should be doing? I thought maybe I have ideas that are of equal value, but of course, as a journalist, I had to be middle of the road and not have an opinion. And it was sometimes hard for me to hold my tongue, especially when I was reporting on these particular meetings. So when it became clear that there was an election and an opportunity to perhaps serve on the town council, I decided I would jump in. I realized that I'm at a disadvantage because I don't have a French surname. I'm not a Willette or a Thibodeau or whatever, but I have been here about 3 years now, and one of the things that I found rewarding is the way this Fort Kent has embraced me as a newcomer. What I love about Fort Kent is that I always feel safe here. I find that if I have a question about, I'm a first-time homeowner, if I have a question about something going wrong at my house, I have a number of people I can call. I know that if I'm in trouble, there are people here who will come to my rescue. I find that remarkable because I've lived in places where that wasn't the case. And I would love to give back. I think that one of the reasons recently is the fire last week. I think it's added an urgency to maybe redeveloping downtown Fort Kent. I'd like to see the hospitality infrastructure improved because we're trying to present ourselves as a destination for vacationers, snowmobilers, skiers, ice fishermen, and so on. And when you think about it, there aren't that many places to stay in Fort Kent. You've got the Northern Door Inn, and you've got the bed and breakfast. And I mean, look what happened this week with the mushers for the Can-Am. Many of them had to bed down with local people because there was no place for them to go, you know, no motel for them to stay at. And I've been talking with some of those folks this week, and many of them have said it would be nice if Fort Kent could address that particular issue. So I'm hoping that as a town councilman that perhaps I can lend a hand in trying to further develop that sector of the town.
Okay, thank you. This is a side note, I can't help but I've got to say this. Two people formerly in journalism, sitting on the outside of meetings when they have executive sessions, which you'd love to know what goes on, but you can't.
Right.
My heart bleeds for you. Jake.
All right, my name's Jacob Robichaux, and I'm seeking re-election. I've served 9 of the past 10 years. I took a year off when my firstborn was a senior in high school, so I could deal with all that happens with that. As for the past few years anyway, I'll speak of my times working with the new manager. It's been great to be a part of positive movement. We've invested in our workforce, and you can tell that by the morale, that they're pleased, and they're a group of people that work well together in all departments. We've tried to engage the community more by having a Facebook page that lists the community goings-ons. Granted, that doesn't always get updated as often as it should, but that's just been addressed. We have our public meetings that are set to schedule, and the second and fourth Mondays of every month, we have a town council meeting. It's open to the public. We have very low participation, but there's no one to blame for that but the people who don't come. The group of people that I've had the pleasure of working with, though it's changed, has always been the same. It's always been a group of people, I won't say men because there's been some women in the past, that have always meshed well together and worked well together and been able to have a good discussion and to come to resolve. We don't always unanimously agree, but to your point earlier on the school board, we work well together. We talk about the people in this community that do well. I drive around with a shovel in my truck to get people out of snowbanks. Even coming here tonight, the walkway wasn't shoveled. I don't wait for people to do things, I do things. If there's garbage on the side of the road, I will pick it up. If there's a log in the road, I'll pick it up. If there's a dead deer on the road, I will move it to the side. If it's not dead yet, I will kill it. These are things I've had to do this year. Calling the state police allowed me to watch an animal suffer for 45 minutes because it's illegal to fire a firearm. And so you have to take other methods of euthanization. It's my pleasure and it's my heart's desire to help. I've been in situations where I've needed help and not had it. I was raised here. I'm the 5th generation raising the 6th, and I moved away from here. I felt as though I was trapped in my community. When you're young and always trying to find other things to do, trouble sometimes follows you. And I moved out and I experienced a lot of different types of life. And then I came home. And there's no other place I would rather be to raise my family. I have 3 beautiful children who I consider to be whole citizens. They've done well in the school system. My eldest is an accountant in Augusta. He may reside here again one day, but for now he's 21 years old and he's doing his thing. My second born is a freshman at University of Maine Presque Isle. I've always encouraged my children to follow their desires and do what they want. I'm blessed that I've had the 3 wonderful kids that I do have, but it didn't come without work. When it comes to children's education, it's important that we be involved in it, and I believe the same is true of our town. I've been part of, Carol's been part of this here too, but working to get our roads fixed. We've worked hard to get monies passed so that we could pave our roads. We do that while trying to keep taxes low. There's some uncontrolled expenses that come in that cause that to be a great concern. The town of Fort Kent operates on 14% of your tax bill. I guess my time's up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Last but not least, Mr. Carroll Terry.
I don't know if I can follow that.
No, well,
My name is Carol Terrio, for the people that don't know me. I reside here in Fort Kent. I had a career in law enforcement for almost 39 years. I retired as the chief of police in Madawaska. I reside here with my wife, Diane. We've been married for 43 years. Both our children are living in Fort Kent in our work at Northern Maine Medical Center in the medical field. I have 5 granddaughters and one that's on the way, which is another granddaughter. And when I retired from law enforcement, I was almost like you folks. I was sitting on the other side, listening to boards, dealing with budgets in the police department. And when I retired, I felt, you know, I wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to get involved, and running for Board of Selectmen was one way for me to do this. And it's been an honor and a pleasure for me to be able to do this for this community, because we have a great community that we live in. Is there room to build on? Yeah, there's definitely is. There's, you know, things change. In the past 2 years, I mean, we've been in a stalemate. We're finally coming out of that, and I think with what we have as far as for board members and our department heads and our employees especially, we have dedicated people that work for this community. We're heading in the right direction. So I've been serving for 2 terms, which is 6 years, and I'd like to serve for another term. There are things that we've started I'd like to see completed, and that's why I'm running back for my seat.
Thank you. Let's see now, who, I just lost my line of thought here. I'm gonna start with Carol again. That way,
Well, at least you know who I am.
I know, I know who you are. There's rumors going around that there are a group of people that would like to see the town plow all its roads and not go out to bid. In other words, the east side of the Fish River is done currently by Mourne Paving. That would entice, or that would require the town buy 1, maybe 2 more plow trucks, maybe hire 1 or 2 more people to operate them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's been brought to the board's attention in looking into possibly taking over the rural routes of plowing. We're looking at what it would cost as far as for the purchasing of the equipment, and then the manpower to operate the equipment. As a board member, I have to look for what's best for the community, what will be the cheapest way for the taxpayers, and still get the service. So at this point in time, we don't have all the figures as far as for what it will cost for taking over, I think it's 30 some odd miles, huh? Versus the town is doing 17 miles on their own. So I wish I'd had more information as far as the cost figure, what it will, if there's a cost saving for the community. If there is a cost saving for the community, I'm gonna look what's best for this community.
Okay, this is not this was not something new, by the way. I mean, this has been brought up before. You know, the question, I mean, if you remember 3 years ago, that was probably one of the questions I asked, because it seems to come up every now and then. I'm gonna go to Andrew. What type of new businesses would you like to see to come to the area?
Well, this is a very good question, and I've given it some thought, because I think that there's opportunity here in Fort Kent for bringing in new business. I think that we have a reliance on traditional brick and mortar businesses when we think of businesses coming into town. But when I think of businesses coming into town, I think of income coming into town and trying to increase the flow of money that runs through the town. And this was something that traditionally in small rural towns, the farms would do. Farmers would bring in money from outside that would come into the community from the products that they would sell, that they would ship out. The number of farmers that we have here is not nearly what it was before. So where can we get that money coming in? And I think that there's opportunity through web-based businesses. I think there's opportunity through service-based businesses, again, operating online. And this is something that I have a little bit of expertise in. The nice thing about it is that any sale that you make on the web that might be outside of the town brings money into our economy. Whereas right now what it seems like we have is what I call often a garage sale economy. We're just selling stuff to each other. And then that dollar that we earn after it gets exchanged just once or twice, it's out the town, it's out the door. And we need to have more money coming in. And so I think that if I was looking for businesses to come in, it's going to be web-based businesses, I think, to embrace the new technology so that we can bring in more people to work remotely from up here and engage through across the planet. Now, this can be done as long as we have the infrastructure to carry it. And right now, we have problems with our coverage of cell phone coverage and the 4G coverage that we have. And one of the things that we need to build is a map of where we have coverage, and then we need to work together as a council to advocate for getting that coverage increased so that we'll have more opportunity to take advantage of it to bring in more income to our town.
Thank you. Rick, if I may call you that. Richard, I don't see where you get Richard, Rick under Richard, but that's okay. How do you feel about increasing taxes, holding them as is, or decreasing them? How would you go about to, I'm going to say, hold taxes down?
Well, one of the things that I found impressive when I first moved here was how much I was paying in property taxes. And I've been railing with with people I know in town about what we could do to address that issue. And I'm guessing that you have to expand the tax base in order to make it more tolerable for property owners. And that would be attracting businesses that would contribute. I'm wondering about perhaps a call center, maybe bringing in some motel. Has to start small, build on that. I'd like to see taxes eventually drop a little, but I also realize that in a part of Maine where services are at a premium, it can be expensive to plow the roads. I mean, there are necessities that require taxation up here. And it's a small community. I would like to think that we can attract more taxpayers, but housing is a problem. And unless we can do something to address that issue, I don't see taxes decreasing anytime soon.
Brandon, you've been here, you say,
Going on 3 years.
going on 3 years. So you've heard about, I'm sure, the possibility of the town closing the skating ring that we have. My understanding lately is that it could go to another area. What are your thoughts of, number one, the closing of the skating ring, which I've noticed lately here, they're closed temporarily, which you can't help it due to the weather. I mean, the soft ice, you get snow or it's cold. How do you feel, or what do you think could be done to maintain the skating ring where it's at? This has been a hot issue here for 4 or 5 years, 5, 6 years
10.
maybe? Huh?
10.
Since
Ten.
I,
It's one of the
Okay,
issues
that's
I
even
ran
worse.
for in the first place.
How would you remedy that as a council member?
Yeah, so first I would say that I wouldn't want to get rid of it. I know that at least here recently, a lot of the college students have really taken an interest in going to the ice skating rink. And so as for a solution to keep it open, you want more people to go there. You know, advertising it more, kind of like I was saying earlier. It's a little hard to, as a newcomer, to figure out what's going on in town. So advertising a little bit better, social media, updating the town's website to make sure everyone knows about it. Maybe even creating events around it to invite people from the town to come. But yeah, definitely wouldn't want to close it. It's one of the few things that we have to do in town. So.
Okay. I'm going to follow up on that with Jake.
Yes, sir. Same question?
I guess, yes, but it's going to be phrased a little bit different. I guess, I mean, I know some of the answers, so it's not fair for me to ask a question that I know the answer to, but...
I could just ramble for 3 minutes.
Well, that way you...
I mean, I'm involved with it, so
cut your
I
time
know
down.
something about it.
Is the skating rink area an area that the town feels are losing money with?
So the town is losing money with the skating rink, and the primary reason for that is because the skating rink where it is in a long-term land lease, and we cannot alter the subsurface, so it has to be ice made on grass, and it cannot be covered. And so it took a long time of talking, and then the past 3 years, someone else took hold of the project through Lonesome Pine Trails, and was able to acquire some property from the University of Maine at Fort Kent, because they're abutting landowners. And we've recently, I've been attending some meetings that is there's a name for it, but the skating rink meetings we've been having.
Concerned citizen.
Yeah, but it was just the feasibility of having it there, because, the point you brought up is great. The university is using the skating rink, but the university is also using the ski tow. And the university, when it does that, has to either take a segment of students here or a segment of students there, because not all do both. But if you could bring all of those university students to Lonesome Pine Trails and have a certain percentage skate, a certain percentage ski, and those that are going skiing, if they want to skate, they can go skating. But the prime factors that would make it more successful would be that it would be able to be properly built with a cement slab under it, so that way with cooling plumbing underneath of it, so that when we have warm temperatures, we don't lose our ice. But again, one of the primary concerns is affordability. We don't want to outprice it. And so it's still in the investigation stages. It's out of, what happens at Lonesome Pine Trails is out of the town of Fort Kent's hands. And if it does not end up going to Lonesome Pine Trails, I hope that the council still feels that it is a necessary winter sport to provide to the people living in northern Maine. I mean, the skating rink, when we were in junior high, we would go skating there for phys ed class. it's suffered from low numbers. People just don't go skating. Now, a new rec director does new things and entices more involvement. And so, not all is lost.
That's a big change.
I know that, as you say, over the years, different amounts of participants have gone.
Yeah.
You get families of 8 or 10 at a time, they all go skating.
Yeah.
Now you got 2 or 3, they go skiing, one might go skating. It's
So, a winter sports destination like Lonesome Pine Trails where you can go snowshoeing, skiing, or skating would just be a place that you could park the family car and then everybody could do their own thing and still meet for lunch without having to drive
yeah,
around.
and then the town would relieve itself of a deficit.
Yep, understanding that the town's gonna try to help financially.
Yeah.
We,
Okay, in that same area, I'm gonna go to, who did I not get 2 questions? Okay, I'll go to Carol. Talking about recreation. Recreation center, years ago, that was talked about also. A place, and I'm gonna say similar to what Madawaska has. A multi-purpose building, or whatever they call it, where you could have indoor skating. You could have whatever you want indoors. Do you think the town should get involved with that, or should that be a private enterprise that would do that?
Well, I would like to see in the future some sort of a rec department building where you could have a facility that would benefit the young and the old. It's been brought to the board. Actually, it's a bubble type building that was brought by Jason, the rec department director, and it all boils down if the town can afford it. But I would definitely like to see in the future a place where both the young and the old could go and benefit by it. And there's a lot of people that walk in the wintertime, and like you take like this winter, it's been terrible and it's dangerous. Even the sidewalks, I mean, our sidewalks are atrocious. Some of them lean like this, you know. So I know them, and I'm going to use the Madawaska multi-purpose. They use that facility. I mean, they have the skating, and again, like Jake pointed out, the surface where it's at right now, I mean, it's on grass, and you're losing the ice a lot of time, and it's just not a good surface. So if you had a building where you could do something like it, unless Lonesome Pine takes over the facility, or at least have a facility where people can go walking and do tennis in the winter, you know, winter soccer, if it would be feasible, I'd definitely be in support of that.
Could I make
Yeah.
a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm a relatively new pet owner. I adopted a dog about a year ago from a no-kill shelter, and Rebel and I spent a lot of time at Riverside Park. One of the things that frustrates me, and again, deals with the available resources of the town of Fort Kent, but it would be great if we could somehow work it so that the paved pathways in the park could be cleared of snow, so that people with dogs who want to walk down at Riverside Park can do that, and also give people an opportunity who maybe aren't pet owners to still utilize the paved trails in the park, because it's a beautiful location. But it's just frustrating. I was down there the other day, and you can't, because of the berms and all the snow that we've had, you really can't walk anywhere but on the connecting streets in that vicinity. But I think it would be nice if we had an opportunity to utilize the paved pathways in the park in the winter.
Okay, I got another question that just you made me think of. So you'd be a perfect person to push for what they call, I believe, a dog park. Is that what they call it, Jake? I mean, that they
Yeah,
want...
so you called my name, so I'll give you a quick,
No, but I'm just,
Yeah.
that's what they call it. Okay, so
Yeah.
let me finish with him there.
okay,
Is that something that you'd like to see in Fort Kent?
Yes, and the reason I say that is because I moved here from West Virginia. I worked in a small, very small town called Bluefield, and the signature project of the last 4 years in Bluefield was the establishment of a dog park in the downtown area, because unfortunately there have been a number of fires in Bluefield over the years, and that leaves a lot of empty space in the downtown core. So the mayor said, well, why don't we utilize that empty space and turn it into a dog park? And it's been the most successful thing that Bluefield's achieved in the last decade.
Okay, Andrew, I see you're itching to answer a question.
Well, I'm wanting to go back to this.
Just a second, see. Let me get Jake here first.
well, just Susie had mentioned, so this is the town manager and not myself, but due to the limited uses of the park, the skating rink,
Yeah.
a dog park is actually part of her plan potentially for that area if it's no longer a skating rink.
Hmm.
So, and
Okay.
So
Andrew?
we were talking about a rec center.
Correct.
And not just wanting it here. I think that you know, I've heard call for a rec center for 20 years since I've been here, and not only should it, you know, should we have a rec center for skating and such, but I would love to have a rec center that has a pool in it, an indoor pool. I would love to have a rec center that has a climbing wall on it, and you know, all this type of thing that would make Fort Kent a destination for folks. Now, the question you have is, well, how do you pay for it? Well, you come up with a plan. You come up with a plan for trying to raise the money to build it. We have the Skeeto. It didn't just appear. We have the lodge up on top of the hill behind Fort Kent. It didn't just appear. We went out and we found people that were interested in it. We rallied them, and we tried to get them to work together in order to bring these things that we have here. And I would love to see a rec center that has, you know, not only just the cement floor for a skating rink, but you know, perhaps something that would make it useful year round for people to stay healthy, for people to challenge themselves, and for people who come here to say, you know, there's stuff we can do up here.
You mentioned the swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to the current swimming pool being built, and just about the time that the lodge at the university was built, there was a push to have a swimming pool in there. Either the lodge or the gym, I can't remember which, it's probably the gym, because this goes back 30 or 40 years ago maybe. Some people, we had an individual at the university donate a good sum of money towards a pool.
Mm-hmm.
It came to the town warrant at an annual meeting to have monies put aside next couple of years, like a bond or whatever you want to call it, for that. People voted down.
Times change,
Say-
bring it again.
No, but what I'm getting at is, you know, when people don't see the benefit of it,
Mm-hmm.
they don't like to finance it. Yes, Jake, you wanted to say something?
well, I just, he's not wrong, but the building that was presented is, what he was saying, has a lot of those indoor amenities. The problem we have is finding land.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the hurdles. But I will also point out that we're one of the few communities that has a swimming pool
Right.
in Aroostook County. And it is another one of those deals that costs a lot of money every year. And you're not wrong, we've talked about finding a way to cover it. But it seems like there's all these agreements that become problematic, so.
Well, the swimming pool that we have is fine, especially in the summer for, taking a small family
But it's
with
definitely
young children
year-round, yeah.
to there. I think that other folks would like to have a facility where they could swim laps,
Yeah.
or a facility where you could have a class of people working on with mobility issues, or a climbing wall,
Yeah.
as I
Yeah,
said.
that's gonna be in the,
That would be quite an attraction up here.
What about the property across from the firehouse at Riverside Park? Would there be an opportunity to put a rec center in that?
the river goes
Exactly.
there sometimes.
I'm sorry?
The river goes there sometimes.
Yeah,
We've
I'm
actually
gonna say
taken
very
houses out
unlikely,
of
that's
it.
an
Well, we have the new
apartment.
pumping station though.
Yeah, you can't pump a river.
You'd have free water
Yeah.
once or twice a year.
There's a
It
pool.
might be filled
There
with
you
crap
go.
from our neighbors,
And I
but
believe they're
Yes.
limited on what they can build
We could
on.
put the ice out flag there.
Now, Brandon, is there any of the subjects that we've talked about that you want to jump in? The pool, a rec center, well, you talked about the skating rink.
I can talk
What
about.
about increasing taxes? I mean,
Oh, that's a fun topic, huh?
what
Give me
would
the
you
easy
like
one.
to see, what would you like to see in Fort Kent that would not increase taxes? But, I mean, a tax base, Andrew mentioned a while ago, internet,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
website designs and selling website. That does not increase your tax base. That does not increase more taxes coming into town. It does for the state, my understanding, and the sales tax, they'll get it. But I mean,
Well, I mean, so one thing that I think that we should really be looking at, especially because there's a lot of federal monies that are coming down the tubes, is expanding broadband internet to all of the people in town. I mean, how many people in the middle of the pandemic had to go home for school, for work, or whatever it was, and had really unreliable internet? So I think that's something we should be doing, regardless of whether it brings in a tax base or not. But I also think that that would bring in a bigger tax base, because you're seeing a lot more people working remotely. And so if we want to make Fort Kent attractive to people who are looking to work remote in possibly an area like Fort Kent, we need to be able to provide internet for them. That might not be like sales tax or state tax or anything, but they'd be paying, if they bought a house, they're going to be paying taxes. So I do think that that's a potential revenue to explore. But,
okay, I've got a couple more questions here.
oh, by the way, I don't want to just blanket raise taxes for no reason, just so everyone knows.
Most of the time, taxes raised, and the council has not too much control over it because of the cost of doing business.
Mm.
I was talking with somebody today, and his fuel bill used to be about $1,400 a month, talking diesel. What, $6 or $5 a gallon right now?
Mhm.
Talked to a trucker yesterday, he says, I put in $600 of diesel in my truck today.
it didn't fill it.
Yeah.
Huh?
And it probably didn't fill
And
it.
I don't think it did, because I think he had saddle tanks of 100
Yeah.
gallons on each side. So that's 200 gallons at,
It's $1,000 right now.
For sure, no, and I think that kind of speaks to a larger problem, that we're very dependent upon oil. I'm not saying tomorrow that we're all gonna have solar panels on the top of our houses, but, there's a group in town that's actively looking to build a municipal solar, farm that would lower the cost of, like electricity bills and things in town.
We just hooked up with them last meeting.
Mm-hmm, yeah, so.
We signed up.
There's a lot of good work going on there that I'd definitely advocate for if I were on the town council.
incidentally, there are apparently 2 farms going up in Fort Kent. I mean, at least they got the permits for them. I spoke with one of the contractors that looking to do work site. They're putting figures together, so if it's gonna materialize or not, that's up to
Right.
to the developer. Okay, I'm gonna throw this question out to anybody that wants it. In your opinion, what's more important for the town right now? Building new homes and commercial spaces, or rehabilitating and better utilizing the existing facilities? Let's, go ahead,
I'm
Andrew.
gonna jump in. I don't see this as a zero-sum game, that we can only do one or the other. think that we can advocate for both at the same time. You know,
Two hands.
that's right. That, you know, we need to make sure that the buildings that we have are, you know, up to code, that they are livable and usable, but we also need new facilities and new buildings, new houses coming in order to provide places for people to live and work. And I think that we not only should not say we've got to do one or the other, but that we must do both at the same time.
Yes, sir.
You got any comments add to that, Rick?
You know, I keep flashing back to the fire last week and, you know, realizing we lost a major contributor to the local tax base. I feel bad for the family that lost, you know, what, 4 businesses. But it also points up the problem of what do you do to fill those empty spaces? I mean, I read that we had a big fire here some years back and we lost 3 historic buildings, and unfortunately it's degrading the picturesque nature of Fort Kent. You know, it's been considered one of the most charming little small towns in Maine, not just in Aroostook County. And I would like to see multi-use buildings put up in downtown. You know, much as exists now with the apartments above, but it should, any building that goes in downtown should have a commercial space below and living space above, because we've got to address the housing issue in Fort Kent. It's dire. I work with people at Shop and Save, and they're always scrambling for places to rent. I mean, it's ridiculous how tough it is for some of those folks, and many of them are low income. So, you know, they don't have the financial wherewithal to just go out and pick whatever they want. They have to, you know, utilize the existing stock of housing.
Okay. The last question that I have, well, I suppose I could find some more here, but it's geared more to the 2 that are running for re-election. And if the other 3 of you will let them answer, we probably can pick at them if you want to. If re-elected as a council member, how will you continue to support the town manager and the department heads with day-to-day operations and continued progression for the community?
So,
Want me to repeat it, Jason?
no, I got you. One of the biggest parts of being a counselor is understanding your role. And when you're a counselor, you don't run the town. You work with the town manager who runs the town. The council changes, the manager's supposed to be there for a while. And you hire a town manager that will hopefully make your town grow and prosper. And I believe that our current manager and the previous one, they both have great qualities, but the one we're working with now, she's got a heart to help. And you can see with the fire, just pointing to the fire as an example, she was out there with the firemen, she was gathering people to bring food so that our firefighters and anyone who needed or was helping, anyone who was displaced, had a warm place to go and get some nourishment. Workforce development, finding ways to further enhance the employees you have through further training so that they can fill roles that you would otherwise have to hire an outside entity to do, such as tax assessor. We have one of our young ladies here right now who's studying to become a tax assessor, so we don't have to hire out that service. We'll be in-house. That's savings, but it's also filling a role that we need. And it allows that employee to get a better pay that she's worked for. I think that was what you asked.
Yeah, it was basically, how would you
Continue working with the manager.
continue working to support the town manager and the department heads?
Yeah, I mean, when they reach out to us with concerns, we address them. We try to address them in a meaningful and understanding manner. And I believe we've been successful in that, and I would just continue.
Carol?
Dan, I've never been a micromanager, but as a board member, you know, when Dawn left the retired from his position. I mean, we interviewed several candidates, and we hired what we felt was the best candidate, Susie. And she's been doing a fantastic job. As far as my role, like Jake was saying, I don't run the town. I'm here if need be. When we have our meetings, we discuss budgets and we help along that process. And as far as the department, the town manager oversees the department heads. And I thoroughly believe if you can't trust your department heads to run your day-to-day operations, I mean, you got the wrong person. And we have a good group of individuals here that work for this community that are dedicated. And along with the board, you know, we wish we could give them more money and more benefits and that, but it all comes down, you have only so much money that you can operate this town. You can tax the public to death, but that's not the way to do it. Yeah, and also you have to keep in mind, you have an aging community here, and a lot of them are on fixed incomes. And on a daily basis, I get it as a board member, that the taxes are high. But if you look at the piece of the pie, what it costs the municipal part to operate the town, it's fairly cheap compared to other departments. So I'm here, I've been here for 6 years, I attend my board meetings. If need be, the town manager has a question that would need a question, an answer from me, I'm available. And as far as for, I don't know what else.
Yeah, I mean, we bring ideas, we discuss ideas, and we look to further the town. Like the solar farm came up, we had a beautiful piece of property, we were so looking forward, there was triple phase lines, we were looking forward to putting a solar farm in, and then the property became unavailable. And it was just like, ah.
You know, and one thing too,
So you have to.
you know, if whoever gets elected, re-elected or whatever, what I've enjoyed the most, I mean, is serving with the board. I mean, we work great together. Do we agree with everything? No. But I mean, when we leave here, we leave, you know, in good spirits, and you know, I'm not angry at one because he disagreed with the way I felt. And again, it's a privilege and an honor to be able to serve for this board.
I have a question for the both of you. What's the biggest frustration of your job?
My job or as board?
Not the board,
Okay.
On the board.
not your,
My job is
not your day job.
I won't go there. Biggest frustration.
My gosh.
I guess it's raising taxes.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to retire here.
Yeah.
And you know, you want to be able to Carol's point earlier, you want to be able to pay the workforce more because some of these men and women really deserve it. Like they
Right.
really, look at our public works crew during the Can-Am. I mean, they're out there at friggin' midnight and then they're right back out there the next morning. And then they're out grooming the trails and then they're out with their families and it's just, they're really a committed bunch of folks.
Well, it was a thing that Toby Gendreau had mentioned to me the other day and reminded me of the differences between running a business and running a government service, is that we often get trapped in the idea that we should be running the town like a business, but it's not.
No.
It's a service that we have here. But there's essentially three ways that you can deal with the flow of money that's coming into the town. You know, you either raise taxes, or you lower the cost of goods and services, or you bring in more people. That's essentially what you have
And you
available
know,
to
he
you.
also mentioned that we had a declining population. We used to get a study, and I don't recall who it was from, but the town of Fort Kent is the only town in this valley with the population set to grow. And I think this last little influx of COVID patrons proves that.
That's right.
My realtor
Yeah.
told me
Housing,
that.
the housing issue, a lot of our apartments, not to throw Section 8 under the bus, but when the facilities downstate are full, they find dwellings up north. And so we have people that are living in our apartments that aren't from here, and their rent's getting paid, but anyway.
Yeah, yes, Carol.
I'd just like to add something. I mean, we live in the greatest community. You know, I've lived out of state, and there's no place like home. I mean, this little community here, I mean, we have the hospital, we have the university system, we have a lot going for us. We have the winter, believe it or not, we might not like it, but that brings in a lot of money. And I think the town benefits by this. But another thing to add on, as on the board, you also serve on different committees. Like I'm involved, I serve on the airport committee. I also serve on the ambulance committee. And I also was, it hasn't happened yet, but there's a chance that at some point in time there'll be a new jail built. And I was asked to serve on that committee also to represent the community. So, you know, you can't ask for a better place as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
That's why I'm leaving.
I'm gonna have to,
Okay.
I kind of like the discussion here. I'm
Well,
usually,
this was like a council meeting. See, we freely spoke.
yeah,
And
well, sometimes I let it go too long, Jake.
Yeah.
I mean,
we let you go too long sometimes too, Dan.
No, but my point is, I'm gonna give you guys 3 minutes to sum up why you're the best person to run for the council. And I'm gonna start with the one that lived the furthest away. I think that's Rick, at one time.
Oh, I've
Was
lived
that
all
Andrew?
over. I've lived in California and Oregon and Washington and
Oh,
Arizona.
Okay, who wants to go first? Put it that
Well, if you
way.
go with the person who's
Oh.
lived the furthest away, I think
Okay,
that
I'll
would
go
be
with
Randy.
Carol. Why do you feel that the people of Fort Kent should re-elect you in your case?
Well,
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. I've got experience in the public servant. I've been on the board for 6 years. And as far as I get around town, I'm an easy guy to talk with. I think I'm a likable guy, but I feel that I have, as far as I want to serve another term. There are things that we've started that I'd like to see through, and you know, I appreciate your vote for a re-election for the selectman position.
Okay,
I'm gonna make
Thank
it
you.
short and sweet.
we'll skip Rick and go to Andrew.
Well, I think that we have had in the past 4 or 5 years a sense of divisiveness that has crept into our town. And I think that we need to find ways to bridge those gaps. I think that we need to trust the people that are running the departments and the other services that we have in our town, and the way they protect their people, the way they manage their people, and recognize that in general, this town runs pretty darn good, including the school system. And what we want to do is not crash it, because we've got times that are coming. We see what's happening in the news. We see that we've got gas prices that are shooting up. We've got the cost of groceries that are shooting up. And that's going to have an impact on us in our town. And I think that we need to be able to work together and not feel like we're going to be threatened, not feel like the decisions that we make are going to make us outcasts in the town. We need to trust our leaders, we need to trust our citizenry, and the way you do that is by trying to bring in all the opinions that people have, and then accepting the decisions that those folks make, and going the best that we can. We did this when we've had other problems come up, like the fires on Main Street, or the flood that we had, when we worked together. And we wouldn't be arguing over, certain aspects of that. We need to have a more amicable leadership. And I think that's the reason I want to run.
Thank you. I just bit my tongue.
You want me to jump in?
Yeah, before I say what I was thinking, go ahead, Rick.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm really impressed with the caliber of the people who are sitting up here at this table. Frankly, I'd like any one of, or any two of you to be elected or re-elected. One of the reasons why I've decided to run for town council is because I'm at a point in my life where I'm taking this grand reassessment. I mean, I suppose you could say I'm looking at my legacy, and I'm trying to determine what it is that I want to accomplish in the years that I have left. And I think that the best thing that I could possibly do is to improve the quality of life here in Fort Kent. And I work part-time at Shop and Save, and it's really opened my eyes over the past 6 months. There are a lot of really wonderful people living here, lots of families, people with kids, and it just seems to me, I'm watching on a daily basis how people are struggling. I mean, really struggling to put food on the table. And I mean, if there's anything that I could do to help improve the lot of these people, that's what I would want to do as a town councilman.
Thank you, Rick.
My turn.
Your turn, Mr. Dean.
All right, thank you. So why am I running for town council? Why am I the best candidate for town council? Like I kind of mentioned earlier, newcomer, but really grown to like this town. I've lived in many, many places, but none that were so tight-knit, but also offered so much. I think that when I'm thinking of running for town council, I think of it as, I think of all of my friends that I've made here. Not being from a very cold climate, you learn a lot of things in your time in northern Maine.
When it's cold.
Wear a jacket when it's cold, by the way. It's very cold in here. Also, make sure you shovel your driveway really well, because you will get stuck. And then how do you get out of the snow? That's another challenge. I've been able to call my friends, and they come over in 5 minutes to help dig me out of the snow with their kids, right? It's just a really welcoming community. So when I think about running for town council, I think of, serving and how can I give back. So that's kind of why I would like to run. Why I think maybe I could be one of the better candidates is because I come at it with a different perspective. I'm from away, and so I've seen how other places have operated, so I don't have preconceived notions on how things should or must be. And I also come at it from an outsider's perspective and want to make things more transparent just for everyone, so everyone understands that, hey, go vote on March 28th for whoever's watching. So
There'll be a lot of people watching. It's live right now, and it'll be played several times between now and March 28th. Jake?
I think I'm one of the better choices for council, because I have an understanding of what goes on here. There's been some mention of us not being transparent. I have no idea what you're talking about for lack of transparency, because we are about as transparent as you can get. You just got to come to a meeting and ask the questions. You'll get the answers you seek. This town operates, I mentioned earlier, our tax bill. 2 of our largest employers don't pay taxes. They provide a lot of jobs to people who pay taxes, but the university and the hospital are not taxable entities. Education costs 60% of our tax bill. So it's important that we pay attention to what happens in the school department. And Toby touched on it when he spoke about the administrative costs and how he wasn't pleased with it. UMFK is an important part of our town. That's where my wife came to college. It's where I went to college. Not where I met my wife, but we met through a friend at college and only dated a short time, and now we've been married 22 years. We can't force investors. We all want people to come to our town. I'll use Dunkin' Donuts as an example. We have to find a spot for them. There's limited lot sizes, and they have a footprint that requires X, Y, and Z. But all we can do is give them A and B. And so we try to work with them to find, and some of those things are still in the works. We can't force investments, but we can work with people who want to invest. We have revolving loan funds. That's one of those executive session things. We don't talk about people's money in public, but if people are looking to build a business in town, we have, sometimes the banks will only give you 80% of what you need. The town fills in that extra 20%. You go into the code enforcement office and economic development, and you work through the process, and then most of the time the people get approved, and we're good to work with. We have been. That's counselors prior to me and what I've had the opportunity to see. We also touched on internet. Yes, we're all about, we do like to make sure that we're up to date so people can be up to speed. But I live 3 miles in town but out of town on a secondary road, and my internet kicks butt. So I'm not sure, because I had 2 college students, or a high school senior and a college student during COVID in my house doing their thing, and we had no crashes, no hard times. So I'm not sure who their provider is. It might be just a problem of provider and finding a different provider, because we've had good luck. I don't try to create problems, I try to solve them, and that's why I think I'm the best candidate.
Okay, thank you, Jake.
You're welcome.
Once again, I'd like to remind the people who are listening or watching, we have 5 candidates in alphabetical order. They are Andrew Burden, Brandon Dayton, Rick Douglas, I got a kick out of that one, Jake Robichaux, and Carol Terrier. The elections are March 28th from 10 a.m., I believe, till 5:30. That will be at the Casey Hall.
No,
That's here.
it's right here.
That was change of location.
Yep, from last year, but yeah.
Yeah.
In the front, out the back.
You heard that from the chairman of the board. You come in the front door and out the back you go.
We also need to remind folks that they can vote early.
Absentee, yes.
As an absentee, you can call the town office, they will
Correct.
send you a ballot, you can come in and pick up a ballot, and you can fill it out right here long before the election.
Tomorrow, right?
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah, they've already had it done, so.
Okay, thank you to the candidates, and may the 2 better candidates win.
Or the 2 most voted for.
Yeah.
Well, that's usually the way it is. I mean, the better, the one,
Depends who comes out.
the people think that those 2
Get
are
out
the
and vote,
best.
folks, if you want us.
Thank you.